but he was not messaging people the day before saying, I'm going to be murdered. They're coming after me. Someone's going to kill me. He didn't say that. And I have his cell.
Certain moments in unfolding stories create turning points where new information changes how earlier events are interpreted. The developments currently emerging in discussions surrounding Erika Kirk represent one of those moments. The most striking aspect of this development is the person connected to it. The new questions reportedly being raised are not coming from a political opponent, a journalist, or an online investigator. Instead, attention has shifted toward the perspective of Charlie Kirk's own mother. When a grieving parent begins examining the official narrative surrounding the final days of a son's life, the situation takes on a very different tone.
Who are Charlie's parents? I think that is a question that we have all asked. Matter of fact, let me just take it a step further. Where are his cousins?
Reports suggest she has begun reviewing public interviews and comparing statements that were made in the weeks and months after the incident. According to individuals familiar with the situation, certain inconsistencies reportedly became noticeable when those statements were placed side by side. That process of comparison has reportedly raised new questions about whether the public version of events fully aligns across different interviews. This shift in perspective has changed the dynamic of the broader discussion. For several months following Charlie's death, Erika Kirk maintained a highly visible role in shaping the public narrative surrounding his legacy. She participated in interviews, managed messaging, oversaw memorial events, and continued organizational activity connected to Turning Point USA. Through those efforts, Erika presented herself as the central voice explaining who Charlie was, what he believed, and how the final events of his life unfolded. That narrative structure depends heavily on the audience accepting the explanations provided through those public appearances.
After me, call me names, I don't care. Call me what you want, go down that rabbit hole, whatever. But when you go after my family, my Turning Point USA family, my Charlie Kirk Show family, when you go after the people that I love.
However, new questions reportedly emerged as Charlie's mother began reviewing earlier interviews more carefully. According to people close to the family, comparing those statements side by side created the impression that certain details did not fully align. One of the first contradictions reportedly noticed involved descriptions of the evening before Charlie's final trip. In one early interview following his death, including a conversation with the New York Times, Erika described that night using unusually serious language. According to that account, the atmosphere during dinner had been tense and emotionally heavy. The interview reportedly described a meeting with a faith leader during that evening. Additional details included a suggestion that Charlie consider wearing a bulletproof vest before departing for the next day's event. The account also mentioned that a friend had recommended speaking behind bulletproof glass for safety reasons. Taken together, those elements, discussion of protective equipment, concern about security, and a tense environment, paint a picture of people who believe there might be a credible threat to Charlie's safety. Such details stand out because they do not resemble the description of a routine evening before a standard public appearance. Instead, they suggest that at least some individuals present that night believed a specific risk might exist.
The security that's to his right and allegedly explicitly said that they are going to kill me tomorrow.
Those details have become part of the broader set of questions now being revisited as observers re-examine the timeline of events. One commentator reviewing the situation remarked that when Charlie previously discussed personal priorities, his wife was not explicitly mentioned among the items listed. That observation, along with the other details now being reviewed, has added another layer to the ongoing conversation surrounding Charlie Kirk's final days and the narrative that developed afterward. Notes reportedly found among Charlie Kirk's materials describe personal priorities written across several pages. According to those who referenced the documents, the list emphasized values such as family, children, legacy, and future generations. For observers analyzing the situation, those notes suggested a person focused heavily on long-term impact and personal responsibilities. However, the broader context surrounding Charlie's final days has continued to draw attention because of conflicting descriptions about the atmosphere during his last evening. One version of events described an environment where individuals close to Charlie appeared concerned about potential danger. According to that account, discussions reportedly included the possibility of wearing a bulletproof vest and speaking behind protective glass at an upcoming public event. If that description is accurate, critics argue it implies that some people believed a credible threat existed. In situations involving potential security risks to public figures, such concerns typically trigger additional safety planning and precautionary measures. However, a different account later surfaced during a public interview. In a televised conversation with Megyn Kelly, Erika Kirk described that same evening in completely different terms.
He was never afraid of that. Neither was I. Obviously, we protect our children. You know, we don't show their faces on the internet, so that's very intentional. But I think we lived our life in such a way where if that was our last day, it was our last day. Like, we always lived as if it was the last day. That's why Charlie's speeches were so good.
During that interview, the night before Charlie's trip was portrayed as calm and routine, without tension or unusual concern. Observers quickly noted that the two descriptions appear difficult to reconcile. One account suggests a tense atmosphere and active discussion about security precautions, while the other portrays the evening as ordinary and uneventful. According to people familiar with the situation, Charlie's mother reportedly noticed the discrepancy while reviewing the interviews. Sources close to the family claim that she began comparing those statements directly, watching the interviews carefully and analyzing the specific details included in each version of the story. As those comparisons continued, observers say the contrast between the accounts became increasingly clear. Around the same period, similar inconsistencies were also highlighted publicly by Candace Owens, who began discussing the timeline in her own commentary. During those discussions, Owens referenced information she claimed to have obtained from sources connected to the situation. One detail she mentioned involved a reported Zoom call that allegedly took place on September 9th, shortly before the incident. According to that claim, the call involved Charlie Kirk, Josh Hammer, and a rabbi based in Israel. During a separate discussion, a commentator raised another question related to the broader context surrounding Charlie's family. Who are Charlie's parents? I think that is a question that we have all asked. The remark continued by expanding that thought further. Matter of fact, let me just take it a step further. Where are his cousins? Those comments added yet another dimension to the ongoing public conversation about the circumstances surrounding Charlie Kirk's final days. According to sources discussing the situation, the reported Zoom call was not simply a moment for prayer or spiritual encouragement. Instead, the conversation was described as focusing on political positioning, particularly regarding issues believed to have international implications. When placed within the broader timeline surrounding Charlie Kirk's final days, that detail has drawn significant attention. Charlie was a prominent voice within conservative media, leading a major organization deeply connected to American political activism. Because of that role, a discussion about political positioning involving a rabbi based in Israel during the period immediately preceding his death has been interpreted by commentators as noteworthy. In political environments where strategy and messaging carry significant consequences, meetings of that nature can sometimes signal broader strategic considerations. Observers reviewing the timeline have suggested that conversations involving international figures and influential commentators may indicate that serious interests were being discussed. Another element reportedly connected to the situation involves text messages that Charlie allegedly sent shortly after the Zoom conversation concluded. According to individuals claiming knowledge of the messages, Charlie contacted two people close to him. One of those individuals was reportedly connected to his personal security arrangements in the days leading up to the incident. During an interview discussing that period, one speaker described the evening before the event. He was at the office and we were going to meet for dinner beforehand with a dear friend of ours who I wanted to just be with us and pray with us. However, the most striking claim circulating online concerns the content of the reported messages. According to the sources discussing them, the messages allegedly included the statement, "They are going to kill me." If such text messages exist and could be independently verified, analysts say they would dramatically reshape interpretations of the timeline. Rather than suggesting general anxiety or reaction to online criticism, the statement would indicate that Charlie believed a specific threat existed following a particular conversation involving identifiable individuals. Such a claim would naturally raise broader questions about the context surrounding his final days. At the same time, these reports remain unverified, and no confirmed documentation has publicly authenticated the alleged messages. Nevertheless, the possibility alone has fueled continued debate among commentators and observers reviewing the timeline. Some critics argue that if such warnings were expressed privately, investigators would need to examine the surrounding circumstances carefully. Others caution that claims circulating without verified documentation should be treated carefully until confirmed evidence becomes available. The discussion has also extended to actions that occurred after Charlie's death, including the speed at which memorial merchandise, fundraising initiatives, and organizational events were launched. Observers have also referenced reports describing a Zoom meeting where Erika Kirk allegedly discussed funds raised from memorial-related activity. Additionally, critics have pointed to tensions involving Charlie's family during memorial events, claiming certain relatives were sidelined during the public ceremonies. These elements, combined with the allegations surrounding the reported messages, have contributed to a growing list of questions being discussed by commentators analyzing the events surrounding Charlie Kirk's final days. A brief remark in one exchange referenced a busy media schedule and a planned meeting afterward. "I have a Fox hit to do in the city and then I need to meet with you afterwards, so it's going to be really late." Statements like that have been revisited by commentators studying the broader timeline surrounding Charlie Kirk's final days. Another frequently cited remark attributed to Erika Kirk has also resurfaced during discussions of the story. In previous comments, Erika reportedly advised audiences not to believe in coincidences. That statement has now become a focal point for observers analyzing the sequence of events, as many people reviewing the timeline are applying that same reasoning while examining the details surrounding Charlie's death. The question increasingly raised across commentary platforms is what developments might occur next. Some analysts suggest that if Charlie's mother decides to move from private analysis into a public statement, the entire dynamic of the situation could shift dramatically. Unlike political commentators or online researchers, Charlie's mother occupies a unique position within the narrative. She is the person who raised him, observed his personal life closely, and witnessed the evolution of his marriage and professional career from within the family circle. Because of that perspective, any statement coming directly from her would carry a different weight than commentary from outside observers. Reports circulating among individuals familiar with the situation suggest that she has already begun reviewing public interviews and comparing statements about the events surrounding Charlie's final days. Those sources claim that the process of reviewing those materials has raised concerns that certain descriptions may not fully align. If a public statement were eventually made, it would represent a shift from private reflection to open questioning. According to commentators following the situation, that possibility has become one of the most closely watched aspects of the story. Some analysts argue that the most significant factor in the situation may not be media criticism, government scrutiny, or whistleblower allegations. Instead, they suggest the most consequential voice could be that of a parent seeking clarity about the circumstances surrounding a son's death. When a grieving parent questions the narrative surrounding a tragedy, the emotional impact can resonate strongly with audiences. Such testimony is often perceived as deeply personal rather than politically motivated, which can shape how the public interprets the broader story. During one discussion about the timeline, a speaker referenced earlier memories connected to Charlie's personal life and relationships. Meanwhile, commentators analyzing the situation say the story appears to be approaching a critical moment. Observers note that contradictions identified within different interviews continue to be debated publicly, while the number of individuals remaining silent about certain details appears to be shrinking. At the center of these developments is the ongoing process of comparison and analysis being conducted by those closest to the situation. As the discussion continues to unfold, one conclusion frequently expressed by commentators is that narratives containing unresolved contradictions often face increasing scrutiny over time. In many cases, the longer questions remain unanswered, the more pressure builds for additional clarification. Whether that clarification eventually emerges remains uncertain. However, the continued attention surrounding Charlie Kirk's final days suggests that the conversation is unlikely to disappear anytime soon.